Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. So, on today's podcast with Bethenny, she is not holding back her thoughts on Andy Cohen and his success. Big yikes. So, let's get into this podcast, but first, make sure you like this video and also subscribe to my channel. If you hit that notification bell, it'll notify you every time I post a video or go live. All right, let's see what Bethenny has to say. From just the previews I've heard, it's not so good.
A lot going on. I posted something on Instagram, which was effectively like a manifesto. If you remember in Jerry Maguire, he kind of just had a mission statement. And some people in the comments after what I wrote said, what happened? And truthfully, nothing happened. I just took stock in some of the things that I say here and on social media. Some of the things that I do, and I wanted to kind of own my side of the street and be accountable. I wanted to be accountable because the reality reckoning has been something that I've brought up about the exploitation on reality TV. And it keeps going deeper as I have Rachel on and then I have Nene on. And we talk about discrimination and we talk about women and we talk about Watch What Happens Live. And I'm a very analytical person. And it really has become very clear in being away from the housewives for so long, what I really feel about it. And what I really do feel about it is that it is an environment designed to pit women against each other, for women to rip each other apart. Watch What Happens Live is a show, but in the beginning, it has been very successful at having women demoralize each other. And it's very crafty and creative because the way that the show is produced and executed, Andy is the host and he will ask provocative questions. So he remains clean, but he will ask a provocative question. Like he recently asked, who is the most overrated housewife? It literally is designed just to get someone to trash someone else. So it's always off of him. The stink is always off of him. And callers will ask a question of a guest saying, so hi, what did you think of when Bethenny did that thing? So that person will have to say something bad about Bethenny or Nene or Ramona or anyone. And I really don't blame the person sitting in the chair. They are there because they want to promote whatever they're promoting and themselves. And it is a clickbait environment. So the show has been successful on the backs of like 150 to 180 women that leave that night and then have to live with tweets and articles and hate by bloggers because they will say something provocative. And it's never the question that is questioned. It's always the answer that is questioned. The answer and the clickbait comment is always what gets the person into trouble and what has made many, many housewives dislike each other without even having met each other, because it perpetuates women gossiping and talking badly about other women for profit. So one example is that a woman on the new Housewives, which doesn't do well, it gets a couple 100,000 or like 300,000 or 400,000 viewers a week and really needs the press. A woman on that show who's not relevant yet, well, who's new. So by definition, you're not that relevant and you're on a show that has arced and is on the back end. I mean, basically Watch What Happens Live and The Housewives is like a nightclub at 2:00 in the morning. It basically has peaked, and it's like, at 2:00 in the morning, it's when people's mascara is running, their eyelashes are coming off of their face, and it gets a little sloppy. And so if you have someone who's on the New York Housewives now in a post-successful era, they're going to want to squeeze that sponge for any amount of liquid they can squeeze it for, and you can never blame them. You cannot blame the talent because they need the relevance, the fame. It's why they went on the show. It's why I went on the show. Yesterday, I did this manifesto and sort of mission statement saying I own my part in the swamp. I was in the middle of the swamp. I capitalized on the swamp. And not until I walked away from it for years now. I mean, I've left twice, and I walked away from a new show on Bravo last months ago because I just didn't want to be in the environment, which was tempting. So I walked away now 3 times because I realized that I was also gross, and I was gross for even contemplating going back, being involved, because I just was making excuses for what this medium was because I was still capitalizing on the medium, and even going on Watch What Happens Live to promote what I was doing or whatever I was promoting was still being part of that machine. And so the last time I was there, yes, I went on the show, and it was very obvious to the viewers that there was an ambush. And Jeff Lewis, who I really do like, and who I had a nice conversation with about it afterwards, and who I don't blame because he too is talent on the show, trying to make a living, trying to promote what he's promoting, and part of this machine. And he was asked very provocative questions and really came for me as Andy came for me, related to ReWives, a show that is definitely not about bashing people. It's about breaking down episodes of a show that I was part of a franchise that I was part of, and relating it to modern day issues. Could be menopause, could be infidelity, could be divorce. And Andy came for me in the media, but as someone who thought they were his friend on some level, Andy didn't come to me directly to tell me what he thought of the show that I was doing. He went out and talked about it in the media publicly. And I think it boomeranged on him because it was several weeks of bad PR for him in saying that he trashed it. And of course, I'm entitled to talk about something that I was as much a part of as he was. He actually never got dirty in it. I actually got dirty in it. So it backfired on him because he became a housewife. He took the bait, and he kind of publicly said several things negative against me. And then he tried to double down on his own show and do it again because it is his own show and he's protected there. It also backfired because the audience thought that he and Jeff had ambushed me. Andy Cohen has built a fortune and bought beach houses on the backs of like 180 women. And what I said in my statement was that we get filthy while he remains clean and gets filthy rich. And that maybe I am biting the hand that feeds me, and maybe that hand deserves to be bitten. But most importantly, that I have to think about the things that I say and the way that I say them, and I have to find the line between my opinion and the media machine and what it feeds me, and that I need to err on the side of the human being. So if I'm talking about the Kardashians or Taylor Swift dating or the Royals, I have to err on the side of the human being, and I have to hold back a little. And maybe Nene Leakes was right when she said what she said, and she said that she's keeping it 75%, because many of the opinions that I form are truly formed because of the media machine and what we are fed by the media machine. And when people say, I want to hear your take on X, they're not thinking about how it's going to affect me. And my take on X may be based off of clips that I've seen on Instagram and TikTok and read in the paper. And they're designed to provoke. And so I've taken the bait. So I'm taking stock in my own life and the things that I say and the power that I have in influence, and I am changing because I want to be a good example for my daughter, and I'm not going to say whatever I think and feel anymore, not because I'm afraid, but because I'm responsible. And this reality reckoning and my part in reality TV, I'm taking it seriously. It keeps me up at night, and I've opened Pandora's box, and I take responsibility for it and I own it, all of it. And when I think about an environment like Watch What Happens Live and a housewife being asked a question designed to come for me that was previously discussed in a dressing room about me, I don't hate the player. I hate the game. Instead, Andy Cohen is a person who is basically just a crossing guard directing different people to say bad things about each other and to say things that will be clickbait fodder to live in the media for the next couple of weeks. Because otherwise, why would someone who has the benefit of having a talk show ask Oprah Winfrey, one of the most accomplished, intelligent women to ever walk this earth, who could have won the election to be president of the United States, and his big question that he decides to ask her is if she's dipped in the lady pond. Or Anderson Cooper, his friend, who's been to Afghanistan and reported and spent weeks on end in places like Ukraine and been all over the world risking his life. And Andy decides to ask him about a dick pic because Andy is only built to utilize other people to get press for himself. And it's worked because it's like that guy on 6th Avenue that moves all of those cups around in circles and you're not really knowing where anything's going. You don't really realize where it's coming from. You don't really realize that when he asks Ray Liotta, rest in peace, a question about who was the worst kisser, and Ray Liotta says Sigourney or something about breath or cocaine or something, that Andy laughs and the stink isn't on him. The stink was on Ray Liotta and embarrassing him and getting him to say something that he normally wouldn't have said, and embarrassing Sigourney Weaver, who had nothing to do with it and didn't sign up for any of this and isn't being paid by Bravo or this machine. But the show and the environment is designed for women to bash and trash each other. And I no longer care if you think I'm a hypocrite for saying it, because in the same way that Kim Kardashian started her career in a sex tape 16 years ago, I started on The Housewives probably 16 years ago. And yes, I went back. That was probably almost 10 years ago. I'm allowed to grow and evolve as a woman, as a mother, as a parent, as a philanthropist. I'm allowed to see the error of my ways on my own, not because anyone told me, not because I got canceled. I make more money now than I did when I was on The Housewives. I make a lot of money by saying what I think. I feel a personal human responsibility to walk the walk and talk the talk. And I had the courage to stand up and start the reality reckoning. So it's going to become very clear in the coming weeks and months what's really happening and what really goes on behind the scenes. And the reason that Andy Cohen can't himself comment and can't himself say that he thinks I'm irrelevant or name me when he says a hypocritical housewife, which I am not a housewife, a term that is from the 50s and also sets women back 100 years and demoralizes them. I am not a housewife. As a grown woman who has my own career, my own money, my own philanthropic effort, I'm allowed to say whatever I want. And I can say Andy Cohen's name as many times as I want. But Andy Cohen, because the network that employs him is under tremendous legal siege from more than 100 people that have been treated unfairly and poorly. So Andy Cohen is not allowed to say anything about me because I'm sure that his mommy and daddy have told him from NBC that he's not allowed to speak about me. But anytime that Andy Cohen wants to come and talk to me, he's welcome to come and talk on my podcast because we've talked on many of his vehicles and I've been used for ratings and for numbers and for clickbait ad nauseum. So he's welcome to come do it here because just in the way that he thought that he was the only person allowed to talk about and exploit the housewives, he's not the only person that has a platform for people to speak on. So he's welcome here anytime to debate me on any aspect of the reality reckoning. And deep down inside, he knows that what I'm saying is correct. And I thought I didn't like many of these women. I used to blog about episodes that are edited and produced where women are drinking and exhausted and it's stressful and you've said something you regret and you're in your head and you're on a trip and they make you film every minute of the day on a trip and then you're exhausted, but you have to do it the next day. And you often feel like if you're not in a scene, they're going to be talking about you. So you're drinking because you just want to relax and you say things that you shouldn't be saying, aka Kelly Dodd in Ireland, and you're being pushed alcohol, whether it's by the producers or by the other castmates. Alcohol seems like a really good idea, and it's a recipe for disaster. And then you put yourself on the front lines and you say things that make people despise you because people think that's who you really are. And I used to blog about people on other shows like at Jersey and think certain things about them. But if everything on Housewives is not a reflection of who I am by any stretch of the imagination, why would it be a reflection of who they are? And then we're crossing over in the franchise and doing talk shows and saying things about each other based on things that have been said about us. I blog about Teresa. Teresa instantly hates me. Teresa's on a talk show. Andy asks her a question. She says something bad about me. She doesn't even know me. I then say something bad about her. I don't know her. I don't really know Nene. I have never spent time with Nene until she sat down for several hours at my house, and I enjoyed her the way that I would enjoy meeting someone at a business conference or at a cocktail party, and we would start texting and being friends. I used to love Lisa Rinna. We were friends. I liked her. I respected her. I thought she was so down to earth and real. When I stopped liking her is when I saw what the machine of the Housewives did to her. I was good friends with Kyle for years. Yes, we went in, we went out, but I felt differently about her after seeing the machine, seeing the social media, seeing how different people react to fame, seeing her differently, seeing how she was portrayed on the show, seeing how she handled the fame. That's not necessarily Kyle. That's Kyle inside the machine, or as they call it on The Bachelor and Bachelorette, the bubble. So I have a different relationship with Kyle now because on Watch What Happens Live, Kyle's asked by, of course, not Andy, someone else who, doesn't want Andy to get dirty. They'll do the dirty work. They're going to get the clickbait too. And she's asked, why did you unfollow Bethenny on Instagram? It's a provocative question. Why not ask Kyle about her travels, her marriage, her kids, anything interesting? But no, the questions are always designed for a woman to trash another woman. A poll designed for one person to win and one person to lose. In the words of Nene Leakes, I said what I said. I'm doubling down. I'm tripling down. I'm out here now naked. And while Andy is playing checkers every night, having women trash each other on his show, I'm here playing complicated chess. So I'm right here anytime. In addition, there are many Watch What Happens Live clips and moments that have been rinsed from the internet. I don't see any of the bad things I've done rinsed from the internet. So Brynn came with me to Watch What Happens Live. They're not allowed out in the audience. She stayed in the dressing room. She got dressed up. And that was the night that Jeff Lewis and myself were on. I like Jeff Lewis. I have a good history with him. I've always enjoyed him. And I think he crosses the line, but rides it. And I just intrinsically, instinctively like him. Now, I know he's close with Andy for years, and I don't know how much of that is show friends and show business, but we had a really nice conversation before the show started, and he kind of came in and was firing at me once the show started, and it did feel like a firing squad. Andy, too, was firing off at me, and what I found interesting about it was that Andy texts me all the time and had so many opportunities to tell me what he had felt about ReWives, but he really did save it for the headlines for his show. And I thought our relationship transcended that. In fact, I have so many very private texts between Andy and myself that I will never divulge because I have a code about sharing information or secrets or texts, and I am a vault. Anything I've said about Andy is an observation and a feeling. It's not proprietary secrets between us, whether it's about money or other housewives. I don't fight dirty. I fight clean. Like, it's all above board. So I felt that Andy really was saving what he felt about ReWives for ratings. And that bothered me because it felt like an ambush. He was saying things to me on his show that he hadn't said to me anywhere by text. The only thing he ever said to me by text was, "I'm glad to see you embracing the housewives," when I told him I was doing ReWives. Then on his radio show, in many interviews, and then on his Watch What Happens Live show, Andy took the bait like a housewife and created the bait to take a shot at this bee. And he did miss. And the audience, for the most part, a couple of haters, but for the most part, the audience really felt that it was an ambush. I am so used to being in that firing squad on that show, because that show is a mud pit where you go to that show with the intentions of promoting something and being filthy for the next 2 weeks with provocative clickbait questions and polls designed to have you get into trouble by saying something you're going to regret. It is by design. The producers, the callers, the guests, everybody's peppered, and Andy remains clean. So on that day, I remember Teresa had just gotten fired upon and made to look unintelligent. And she was in the dressing room and we had a chat. And then after I returned from my segment, I came back in and Bryn was like, "Mama, I didn't like that. He was mean to you." Like, she really didn't like it. She felt that everybody was ganging up on me and bullying me. To be perfectly honest, I didn't really entirely notice. Like, I'm so used to it, but it felt that way when I was on the show. I felt ambush, but I'm very good under pressure. I'm good when under fire. I had one reunion where everybody knew that everybody was coming in with their own gun. And on that reunion, I helped Luann get paid for the reunion without attending. And she would have been the only ally I would have had. And yet, because she was in a bit of trouble personally and emotionally, I helped her get exempt from the reunion and still get paid and get her rehab paid for her. And I took it on. I was raised at the racetrack and in an abusive environment. It hurt me for my daughter to just be hurt. She felt hurt. She was like, "I thought that was your friend, Mama." And, it's like, there are no friends. This is show business, not show friends. And many people have asked me if that was really the nail in the coffin that allowed me to say how I really feel about Andy. Sometimes you're not even really sure how you feel about something or someone because you're just so used to that dynamic. And when that dynamic either pays you or you're scared to shut a door because you may want to enter back into it because it's a vehicle for media, or you get to go back on that show and promote something. Or one day you'll get paid millions of dollars and you'll have to go on one of those ultimate girls trips because you have no other source of income and you're desperate. You've lost everything. Like, these weird rainy day thoughts happen in your mind where you just don't see that there's any reason to burn a bridge or close a door. Why would you? And that's what a lot of people are thinking, because people in the entertainment industry and society at large and in corporations and in pretty much every business are afraid because they just don't want to get canceled, even if it's within their own smaller circle. And I've always been one to be unafraid. And for a while, I've felt that this was a cesspool. I just felt hypocritical because I was saying it about something I was part of. And I just kept dipping my toe in until the water was a little warmer. And then one day I was like, I'm all the way in the pool and there's really no turning back. I don't think Andy's inviting me over for a Tupperware party anytime soon. And I think I didn't realize how I really felt. And I didn't realize until hearing from all of the horror stories of people from reality television and Bravo specifically that I got more courage. And hearing the people that have called the lawyers and told their stories about racism and discrimination and things that, like, I didn't really think about and really believe. I kind of rolled my eyes thinking these people are just disgruntled. And I saw Nene not as the character with the sound bites, but I saw Nene as a person. I saw Jill as a person and as a woman. And I saw Rachel as a person and a woman, and a lot of these people, even Kelly Dodd, who said negative things about me, Tamara, who said negative things about me. They're women, they're mothers, and they're part of this machine. And I can't blame them for their participation. I genuinely can't. And they all know that what I'm saying is true. Even the ones protecting the realm, making a lot of money right now, pretending that they have blindfolds on and that they can't see around them. They know I'm right. I know I'm right. I'm completely certain that every child who was exploited on Bravo television that has to live that for the rest of their lives, I'm right. So it's easy to be vocal when you know you're right. So that's where I stand, because sometimes being right doesn't mean you have the courage to do it. And once I rip the Band-Aid off, I'm out here naked. So I'm naked, but I'm right.
For me, as a viewer and a lover of Bravo, Watch What Happens Live is a great opportunity to discuss what just happened on the latest episode of whatever airs that night. I see it like an after party with Andy Cohen, and he will ask some questions that we might all be having, and yeah, some are spicy and make you go, oh shit, he just went there. I personally think that Bethenny is upset that Andy does such a great job with Watch What Happens Live. He is a great host. He keeps asking questions that all of us are thinking or would like to ask and see what they might say. In a business perspective, it's a great move. It's not Nancy Grace where she's covering the news and talking about politics. Like, that's just not the show. The show is about reality television and what we just saw. People that are interested in these shows are always wanting more and wanting to hear the details of what was not shown or what happened. Everyone, of course, they're going to like some things and they're not going to like others. I don't think this is demoralizing women and pitting them against each other. These people can answer a question if they choose to. And yes, any question you ask can spark some kind of conflict or debate. And that's up to them if they want to answer it. As a good host, he's going to ask these questions. And if they don't want to answer it, then they have every right not to answer it. And what makes it different for any one of these people who decide to do this? What makes it different than a podcast or a different television interview or anything on social media? If any of them want to do Watch What Happens Live, they have the opportunity to. If they don't, then they don't have to do it. Bethenny chose to do Watch What Happens Live, even though she was no longer on RHONY, and it was years even later that she still comes on as a guest to talk about her newest adventures and things like that. And the last time that Bethenny was on Watch What Happens Live was when she was talking about ReWives, this podcast here that she's on, and promoting it with Jeff Lewis. And she's had some conflict, I guess, ever since then, though she has not spoken about it really until now. My thing is, what does this have to do with Andy? Why is he worse than she is? She has a podcast. She talks about her opinions. She asks hard questions to the guests that she has on. Some that even spark debates with other people, like the whole Rachel podcast. That sparked a lot of debate, didn't it? It's the same thing. Bethenny also says in this podcast that she's walked away from Bravo now 3 different times, one being recently just a few months ago. To me, that just kind of tripped me back to the whole Rachel theory when she was on Bethenny's podcast where she was like, I would have gone back if they paid me what I think I should have got. She said it and it was very tempting, as she says, but she also felt gross for even thinking about coming back. Now, even in the clips that I will show you later from the Watch What Happens Live interview, she even talks about how Andy came over and tried to get her back onto RHONY, but he still knew that she probably would never, but he still wanted to give her that shot. This is how it's always been since Bethenny left. He's always left that door open for her if she ever did want to go back. And he knows that she was trashing the housewives even back when she was on Watch What Happens Live. But he still gives her these opportunities because they were close. I also want to point out that Decider did post an article regarding Bethenny Frankel responding to the whole RHONY star Jessel Tank, calling her the most overrated housewife. and that they need to be more relevant, which, as we know in her podcast here, she says that they're going to squeeze that sponge for any amount of liquid they can squeeze it for and can never blame them. You can't blame the talent because they need to be relevant and have that fame. It's why they went on the show. It's why she went on the show herself. That's when Bethenny then goes into slamming Watch What Happens Live and claims that it's designed to get someone to trash someone else, and that the talk show is successful at having women demoralizing each other, while the stink is always off of Andy Cohen, who asks the provocative questions. Again, I don't think he's asking provocative questions. I think some of them, yes, are a little spicy, but nothing that anyone has to answer. They're questions. Bethenny also claims that this is the way it works for Watch What Happens Live, and that in the dressing room, Andy comes in and talks about what he wants to talk about. Well, in response to that, a source from production shut down these accusations, saying that they are absolutely false. They told Page 6 that Watch What Happens Live does not conduct pre-interviews. That naturally, Andy does stop by the green rooms to greet his guests before the show, but he does not discuss specific questions or topics in advance, unless the guest initiates a topic that is personal or sensitive to them. And certainly, Andy nor any of Watch What Happens Live producers is feeding answers to these questions. That's pretty much it for the article. If you do want to check it out, it is linked down below, so you can check that out. I feel like production answering the question about what doesn't happen with telling their guests the questions or topics. But I will say that Bethenny's main point was that these people are pitting women against each other in the sense of asking questions that they know are over the top or can cause some kind of friction or drama with others. This does happen, absolutely. I know that these questions being asked aren't all Bravo. They are also from fans. They cite the sources. Even when Andy says, like, example, this is just an example. Queen of Bravo on Twitter says, you can easily then go to Twitter, look up the name that he gave, and see if they're asking these questions and things like that, which I have done before, and they are there because I do know some of the Twitter names that he's mentioning because they are Bravo fan accounts as well. But even then, they are asking questions. They are having these games, and they're entertaining everybody, but they are also asking what people are wanting to know or what they are thinking. And it's like, this is not just on Watch What Happens Live. This happens on podcasts, other interviews, other videos. Even Bethenny was asking Rachel questions in that sense, steering her certain ways by the questions being asked, and asking certain things that everyone wanted to know and was wondering because she knew it would draw people in to listen. In my opinion, I feel like Bethenny is the queen of banter and shade. She can dish it out, but she can't take it. And she trashes people all the time and says whatever she wants. But if anyone says anything back, now she's a victim. That's what bothers me the most. I will say, though, she is at least more aware, but we will see in due time if her being aware will bring forth this change that she talks about. Bethenny says her opinions and what she says regarding different things happening are based off the media, and she's feeding the machine, and she might base her opinions on what she sees from clips, whether it's from IG, TikTok, or YouTube, but she needs to be more aware of what she thinks and how she says things, not because she's afraid, but because she is responsible. But is she taking responsibility? I don't think so. Not all the time, at least. And taking accountability is the first step to change. And we can only hope that this change comes. I do respect that from Bethenny. I know people say, well, she has done this and she's done that. And, all of that is true. She has done a lot of shady stuff too, especially with production and her own programs and stuff that she's produced. I've watched some interesting videos and read about a lot of different contracts that she had for actors and actresses that weren't put in place to protect them. If she wants this change, she has to make the change, even with everything that she does. I'm willing to give her a shot to see if she is about that change and not just saying what she might do or what she would like to do. You have to make that change. Bethenny then makes one comment that really stuck with me. Well, besides the fact that she says Andy Cohen has built a fortune and has bought beach houses off the backs of 180 women. That one stuck with me too. But she says that Andy Cohen is out here playing checkers every night and she's over here playing chess and she's ready. Listen, in my opinion, if anyone is playing chess, it's Andy. He has a natural gift with what he does, whether good or bad. He is asking questions and things that will get people to talk for a week till the next headline comes out. That is playing a good game right there. And to me, Bethenny is the one playing checkers. Talking about what she hears here and then commenting on what she heard there, where Andy is ready no matter what and can come up with things right on the spot, where Bethenny isn't as quick-witted, in my opinion. And especially if she cares enough to change her ways and wants to better it for her daughter, like she claims, then she needs to step it up and be better. Come up with better moves and not be so drawn into this petty, pointless drama like she says she doesn't want to be a part of. She talks about what Andy could have said when talking to Oprah. But do we think Bethenny could have done a better job? In my opinion, no, I don't. And Andy, who is this personality who attracts people, him asking questions that just not anyone would ever ask. That is impressive. And that draws people in to pay attention. He is great with entertaining. And I feel maybe she's just a little bitter that she doesn't have that same talent. I've seen only a few episodes of her old talk show because it wasn't interesting at all. So maybe I'm being a little biased here. Maybe it just wasn't for me. But I watch Andy on Watch What Happens Live every night. Even nights I might not even know who the guest is or enjoy the guest that he has on. I still think he shakes it up and he always gets a laugh out of me. I truly love his Instagram reels and TikToks with his interactions with his kids. I think that itself is very relatable. It's interesting. It's cute. Ben is a riot. And I would love to see more of that from Andy Cohen. But Andy has a gift that a lot of people don't have. And I think she's just shaming him and what he does because maybe she's just a little jealous of his success and being a likable person with this personality that everyone loves, where sometimes she wavers in her opinions and her personality. I know there are a lot of people that like Bethenny or liked Bethenny when she was on The Real Housewives, but sometimes she just goes off on these crazy tangents and high extremes, and it doesn't draw us in. It draws us away from her. We also cannot forget that Bethenny and Andy used to be BFFLs, and Andy held her in a very high regard when she was on RHONY. We knew that her closeness with Big Daddy was real and also warranted by just how many spin-off shows that Bravo had for her, including like shows about her marriage, her baby, her businesses. But now we find out that Andy is this evil devil who ambushes his friends. It just doesn't make sense to me. I also have the Watch What Happens Live video, like I was saying, from when she did it with Jeff Lewis. It was December of last year. At this point, too, Andy and her had a little thing happening where we kind of heard from her podcast how Andy didn't tell her how he felt about her covering the Real Housewives, and he waited to say it publicly instead to her personally, so she kind of got upset, which I can understand. They hash it out, and I do have the clip that I want to play for you guys. Forewarning, though, I did speed it up because Bravo hates when you play clips even under fair use. So, it's up to 1.25. You can just drop it down a little bit for these clips only. I'm not trying to upset anyone. I'm not trying to upset Bravo. That's why I'm letting you guys know. So, here are a couple clips. Now, since this Watch What Happens Live episode and everything that went on, Bethenny now believes that Andy and Jeff planned some kind of secret allyship to publicly embarrass her on national television. I don't know about you, but that's usually what we call being paranoid, not ambushed. But that's according to Bethenny. I'm not sure what she was expecting also when agreeing to appear alongside Jeff, who she knows him better than most of us, but she knows he is not a wallflower personality. But that's not his fault either. And this isn't the first time that Bethenny and Jeff have met, and it's not the first time that they've appeared on Watch What Happens Live together. I know of another time back in August of 2017 that they appeared together. But supposedly, this is all Andy's fault because Bethenny knows she bit off way more than she can chew on this one, and it blew up a very important person in her world. So I guess now Andy has to become the ultimate villain so that she can validate going off the rails. I don't know. During, though, this Watch What Happens Live, we saw that it was all Jeff that clocked Bethenny's ReWives podcast because it wasn't original. Additionally, Andy felt her new venture was hypocritical since all she had done after she left The Real Housewives was trash The Real Housewives. So basically, Andy and Jeff were saying what everyone else was saying, and no lies were told that day. But the truth hurts, and Bethenny felt stabbed. That said, Bethenny believes that Andy made Jeff do his dirty work, and she doesn't blame Jeff. Bethenny said he too is talent on the show, trying to make a living, trying to promote what he's promoting, and is part of this machine. Okay, Bethenny, you were there promoting too. That's why you were there. Another thing that Bethenny says was that after she returned from her segment, she came back into the green room where her daughter was, because she had brought her daughter there, and her daughter said, "Mom, I didn't like that they were being mean to you? Bethenny said that her teenager felt that everyone was ganging up on her and bullying her. I just don't see where. And if you watch the whole episode, maybe you'll get more context, but unfortunately, I can't provide that for you guys. I can only give you these clips, but even those clips were the main context of the program, and I just don't see where they were bullying her. I do want to point out, too, that the age requirement for Watch What Happens Live attendance is 21 and older, which is why production said that her daughter had to stay in the green room. They also told Page 6 that we're not designing this show for 12 to 13-year-olds, which was the age of Bethenny's daughter at that time. Bethenny is the parent here. She is the one to determine whether or not her daughter should be watching this or not watching that. And she also knows how this show is, what kind of questions might be asked, all that. I don't know why she would allow her daughter to watch what was happening, but I think that it was putting her in this position that maybe her daughter should have never been a part of. I also find it interesting that Bethenny also tells us in this podcast that just a few days after Watch What Happens Live, that both Andy and Jeff called her to make amends after their confrontational episode because they felt maybe it got a little too much and didn't want to have any issues with each other. That's being an adult. Bethenny was the one who said, too, you gotta accept people's apologies and be transparent and roll with the punches. So why didn't she say something then that it bothered her? I'm just not understanding where all of this hostility is coming from. And to me, there was a little tension, but everyone seemed to handle it well. And I don't see where she was ambushed. But what do you guys think? I know I've said enough here, but what do you guys think about this podcast? What do you think from the clips that I showed you? Do you think she was ambushed? Do you think she is just dragging up drama to cause an issue? Or do you think she is still sincerely hurt by what happened that last time she was on Watch What Happens Live? Let me know down below in the comments, and I hope you all enjoyed the video, and if you subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell, you will be notified every time I post a new video or go live. I hope you guys have a great day. Bye, everyone.